valuable if you decide to get out after 4 years and start your own practice.
So it's a worst case scenario. You do your 4 years and you decide this isn't for me. You're going to be hopefully debt free, at least from the medical school side, maybe not undergrad. You're going to have, great stories. Hopefully you got a chance to travel, maybe see a really cool base during your time, and tons of leadership experience on your belt. Because at an early age in the Air Force, you're going to have people. You're coming in as a captain, which is already 2 ranks up the officer chain of command, and you're going to have people underneath you from day one that are kind of, you outrank me and Dewey here in like 2 seconds when you guys commission. So you have people kind of looking at you like, hey, you're the boss. So it comes very quick, I think, compared. Not to scare you. It's not like they give you this role and then walk away from you. It's graduate, I guess.
You actually have mentors. You rely on your NCOs, which would be like me and Sergeant Miller, that E6s, E7s that have been in 12 to 16 years. That they're not doctors, but they've been in the hospital a while and they know how things work. So you kind of rely on them a lot to handle some things and kind of get you spun up. And if you can remember your commissioned officer training from 8 years back, because that's when you're going to do it, you have that as well.
Is there a large place for surgeons in the Air Force?
You know what? It's on the rise. The latest numbers I looked at, and by the time you match, it's hard for me to say if it's going to be a big need. But obviously, unfortunately, for what's going on right now in all the branches, I think surgeons is kind of on the rise as far as needs of the Air Force. Actually, our medical, our service commander, I guess, or our corps commander, he's kind of hesitant to put these numbers out these days because we got a lot of people that don't apply, or they don't apply to get the match to be a surgeon because they think it's so competitive. And so he kind of stopped putting out the numbers of how many we have opening, because this last year we had some open seats. Not enough people applied for them because they just figured they weren't going to get it. But numbers are on the rise. Typically, the big needs of the Air Force are more of your clinic setting type docs. Family practice, we're always going to have a need for. Peds, military people like to have a lot of babies. OB, internal medicine, things like that. You have to keep in mind that we have pretty strict rules health-wise to get into the Air Force. And so most of the time, it's like well patients. We have our physicals and things like that, and of course some of us get ill, which is unfortunate. We have those docs that cover them, but family practice is more so for dependents, I guess.
Sometimes it's not just Air Force people. You were talking about maybe Army or seeing Navy people. We see civilians as well. Lackland Air Force Base, the largest hospital we have in the Air Force, Wilford Hall, they actually see patients from downtown San Antonio. They'll, they're close enough to their need. They'll see trauma patients come in to Lackland to treat.
Yes, sir.
Can you advance a pay grade as a doctor? Like, let's say you start off as a captain, like you said, and you go up to the next.
That is the cool thing about officers in the medical corps, and what all the other officers kind of, maybe some of them get disgruntled about. Your rank, being a doc in the Air Force, comes with time and service. The cool thing about it is your med school counts towards that, and that's why you're coming in automatically as a captain. I'd say basically by your 5th year you put on major. I think 8th year, between 8 and 11 years, you're looking at lieutenant colonel. By your 18-year mark, you're surely having full bird. And so typically our docs at 20 years, which is a retirement year, you'd be a full bird colonel in the Air Force.
I apologize, this wouldn't be right back.
No. Yeah, you're trying to do.
Residency count towards that 5 years you're talking about?
It would if you went to an Air Force residency. Only it would be active duty time. If you went the civilian route, of course, you wouldn't be on active duty status.
So about 2 years into actually working as a doc, you'd be major.
Yeah, how about that?
How much of a deterrent do you You have like this where you get stationed at the location.
Oh, great question. Did everyone hear that? About this is one of those things that kind of just freaks people out. Basically, before I begin, you guys are really hard to recruit. Future docs, they're hard to recruit, maybe even harder to keep in, even with all the great stuff we throw at you. And so part of the things we can do, because everyone thinks they're going to make this fortune being a civilian doctor, and so they want to split from the Air Force to make their millions. So how do we entice you to stay in if we can't match maybe what the civilian world is paying you? We try to make you happy in other ways. And so usually our docs get between their first and second pick as far as bases. But one thing you have to keep in mind is there's going to have to be an opening in your specialty at your base for you to go there. If you're a neurologist trying to get to a base and they don't even have a neurologist on staff, I mean, you're not going there obviously. But basically, we call it the dream sheet. You can list between 8, I mean you can list as many as you want I guess, up to 20 bases if you want. Basically, the Air Force is going to go down the list looking for your specialty and a spot in that base for you to go. If they get all the way down to the bottom, this is something you guys got to know. If they make it through your entire dream sheet and they can't find an opening for you, the Air Force is going to place you where they need you. Which, you know, could be an awesome place. But it, you know, it could be a place maybe at least.
As far as numbers go too, we have pretty much every specialty in the Air Force, but not at every base, of course. You know, if you're looking at the big bases like Lackland, Wilford Hall, or Scott, or Egmont, something like that, then, you know, they have the big things like anesthesiology, surgery, wards, things, you know, that nature. Whereas some of the smaller bases, you know, the ones you're going to find are peds, family practice, things like that. So it's really going to depend on your specialty and what they have at that base, and the mission of the base as well.
But I guess to kind of answer your question, you do have a say-so. Hopefully it works out in your favor. We really try to make it, of course, work out in your favor to maybe entice you to come back after your 4 years, you know, and maybe make a run for retirement. But you do have to know if there's no openings, we're going to put you where you need to. I think you had a question, then you.
Yeah, what determines whose dream sheet is looked at first? Like, there could be two people who have the same dream sheet.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Really, it's going to be.
Is it random? Like,
golly, that's a pretty big thing.
I think it's just, you know, they go through cycles. I'm not sure how they do it initially, but I know after you've been in for a while, they go by time on station. So if a doctor's been here for 6 years and he wants to go to the same place as another doctor who's only been for 3, the one for 6 is going to go first.
yeah, I'm just wondering, like, once you get out of school, is it going to be like, what's your GPA or?
You know, that would not come into play as far as your assignment are concerned.
As far as your residency, will.
Getting matched, you mean?
Yeah.
That's definitely plays a part. But as far as, they're not going to, just because, say, you graduated here with a 4.0, they're not going to say, well, you get Florida and you don't because you had a 3. They won't even look at that. Usually assignments are, for docs, if there's a space available and then it's time on station. Like for us, when we get an assignment, it's the person who has the most time on station usually gets the assignment before anyone else. For you guys, if they were to include time on station, it would include maybe your residency. And just how long you checked into residency. That's a tricky question. You know what, maybe if I get your email later, I can research it for you and check. That's kind of, I'm curious to know myself.
How many bases does the Air Force have both in the States and out of the States?
Wow. We have a lot. I believe in the packets we have
Some maps.
We have some maps showing you each of our major installations. I'd say, I mean, I can name probably 6 overseas. We have bases overseas in England. I think there's 3 in England. There's 2 in Germany. I'm just saying this off the top of my head. So if I'm wrong, don't kill me. We have 1 in Italy, 3 in Japan, 1 in Turkey, 2 in Korea. And then that's just our major installations. That's not including like humanitarian assignment bases where docs go.
Little places like Azores, Spain. It's not a large facility. It's kind of between a small and medium type facility. They do it for a lot of in-transit stuff, going other places. We do have active duty members there, all over the place.
And then of course in the States, I mean, pretty much every state, with the exception of maybe the Midwest, we have bases all on the East Coast, all on the West Coast, and then scattered kind of through the middle, but not as many. Major medical bases for the Air Force is San Antonio, Wright-Patterson, which is in Ohio, Travis Air Force Base, which is just north of San Francisco, yeah, and DC area. And then overseas, the major military medical facility is in Ramstein, Germany.
Is it tougher to get in overseas or easier? Is there more demand over there?
It's still really going to go by the same requirements. It's hard for me to say if it's tougher. If there's an opening for your spot, and that's your number one pick, really, they're going to try to make you happy.
Especially after your commitment's up, say that 3 years, and I don't know, say you've been stationed, in North Carolina there at Shaw or something, and you want to go to Ramstein, Germany, that's something, depending on especially how bad they need you, they could most definitely make happen.
Those are sometimes when people don't get their number one pick. That is one of those carrots. I always use carrot. The dangling carrot to make you maybe sign up again is like, hey, we noticed you didn't get Hawaii your first go round. How about now? That kind of thing.
How about work if husband and wife are both physicians or dentists?
We have what's it called? Dual location.
You talking about military, or like say the wife is civilian and
Both.
but
Well,
And then the other way,
okay. Typically, the Air Force is not in the business of separating married. We have a lot of practicing married docs in the Air Force. I'm not going to say there won't be times where you might be separated, but typically we're not going to put you in New Jersey and her in Arizona.
I've known tons of people that are married, finance troop to a mechanic, or a pilot to a nurse, things like that. And I've seen tons of those people, even in recruiting, where it's even more segregated because you only have a certain amount of jobs that you can do. Even though recruiting is its own separate entity, we still have finance troops and things like that. So they do a good job, even if they have to move both of you sometimes to a whole new location. They'll do it. It's a business. How happy you're going to be treating patients if your wife is 3 states away.
Yeah. What they're going to do in a situation like that, especially if you're both docs, is they're going to look at whose specialty is a bigger need for the Air Force, and that's what's going to drive, the location of the other member. Military to civilian. So if you're a military member married to a civilian, we'll move her anywhere you go, with the exceptions of places that spouses are not allowed.
which would be where?
Well, just like deployed places, places where they wouldn't allow little kids in, Iraq, things like that. Which I'll come back to. I'm sure people are going to have questions there. Thanks. Depending, of course, it's going to be up to her to find a job in the local area and things like that. But anytime you're married, of course, the Air Force, we have 2 bases that are major installations. I think they're both in Korea, where it's like a 1-year tour. And typically on a 1-year tour, we wouldn't really want your spouse to go. We wouldn't disallow it, because my brother actually took his spouse there, but he paid out of pocket. So anywhere else, really, the Air Force is going to pay for your spouse to go with you. They pay for all your household goods to be shipped. So those of you, just like you're married here. Or just like if you were to get hired at UNC from here, and your wife goes with you.
They do have location advisors there for spouses that come in, where they work with the community as far as job locations and things, almost like a temp agency or something, but it's on the Air Force installation that they will help them find jobs.
Does it matter if you're married before you join the military, or if you're married while you're both in the military? Placement-wise, if you can place together?
That might play a part. I was saying there might be a time where you guys are separated. It's just because of the timing. It sometimes takes up 3 months where we can actually do it for you. But really, whether you're married prior to or before, I actually just put in a young lady. Actually, I think she went here. But anyway, she's at USC Med School. She's married to an Air Force officer, and already from an early point, they're already thinking. Of course,